They play in that sense an NBA style. They really bang you around. And that's good for a guy who's heading to the NBA. He's already used. This guy is not going to be intimidated inside. He's not going to get beat up. In fact, he's going to be the one doing the beating up. I think there's a ton of upside with this guy. And you mentioned that he didn't play in a good offensive system. It's one that stresses defense. So we might not even know what he can do on the offensive side. I think Culver's going to be. I like him as the third best guy in this draft.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that, Dave. Like I say, when push came to shove with Texas Tech at times, you saw him take over as the point guard. So, if he has a hair bit of improvement in his ball handling skills, you could be talking about a three-position player who is a two-way player, offense and defense. And, in the NBA, they like those two-way players, guys that will play and that's the main reason why I think Andrew Wiggins is probably on his way out at Minnesota, just not much of a defensive force for the Timberwolves. So Hunter, again, grouping those two guys together, Hunter and Culver, I think they're much of the same, although, that pack line defense is a little bit different, like you mentioned, than the defense Chris Beard preaches, which is really Bobby Knight style, hard-nosed, man-to-man stuff. He's NBA ready. He can shoot from three. He can get to the rim whenever he wants. I think Jarrett Culver very possibly could have been the third best pick in this draft. We'll wait and see. But I like him enough, and I think that he helps the team that he went to here immensely.
So Dave was talking earlier about nobody criticizing anyone when the draft choices didn't get ripped.
Stud.
Exactly. So we saw two teams right here in the middle of the lottery now, where the Cavs take point guard and Darius Garland when they just drafted a point guard last year in Colin Sexton, who looked pretty good. And some people are saying, no, they don't buy it. But here's Cleveland taking Garland over Culver, mind you. And then, of course, the Bulls, who have Chris Dunn, saying, all right, Kobe White's our guy. What do you think of those moves for the point guards in the lottery last night?
Well, it's interesting because already John Beilein today came out and said Colin Sexton and Darius Garland are going to play together. So he's going to take a pair of 6'2". They have different skill sets for sure, because we got robbed of 28 games of watching Darius Garland last year. I think it was 4 games into the season when he went down. And if they had made the tournament, they would have made some tournament. We would have gotten to see extra. So Garland, not a lot of people are aware of right now. And probably those of us who saw him for 4 games aren't totally aware of how good he can be. But according to John Beilein, those two guys will play together. Colin Sexton, much more of an off-the-ball guard than Garland. He can handle, he can shoot from range. Maybe they complement each other, guys. I'd worry on the defensive end with those two when you have a couple of small guys like that playing defense. But Cleveland, who knows? Maybe they're going to be one of these. The NBA's turning out a lot of track-type teams right now, 94 feet up and down. Let's get to 125, 130 points. You could argue the pick, Teddy, because you already have a point guard in place, and did you really need a second one and to play them together? I guess that'll be the discussion if it doesn't work out. Dylan Windler, I think, from Belmont, makes a pretty good pick late in the first round. You could probably comp him to Joe Ingles at Utah.
Not a bad player.
Very much the same player, right? Good assist guy, good rebound guy, plenty of range, can stretch the floor, and can handle the ball. I mean, Dylan Windler's a guy that can take a guy one-on-one and get to the rim. So I think that's a pretty good pick for them. Their guy would be Kevin Porter Jr., right? There were a few of these guys last night who you just don't know what you're going to get for all of their talent. I think Nasir Little falls into that category. Bol fell into that category. But Kevin Porter Jr., if he is half of the guy that he was supposed to be at USC, then maybe Cleveland gets 3 really strong first-round picks. But I'm with you, Teddy. The Darius Garland pick, a little bit suspect. He could have gone for a different position. But from what I read, they're just trying to stockpile talent, and I can't blame a team that's trying to work from the bottom up for just stockpiling talent. That might be the way to go.
So let me throw a name at you. Who look, there's some gamble involved because he tore his ACL. So he's going to miss basically all the first season. But this kid, Okeke, is a terrific player. I mean, he is a really terrific player. There's not much he can't do on the court. So to me, Orlando getting what to me is a slam dunk top 10 talent, if he's healthy, at 16, maybe the best value in the draft.
Yeah, the kid from Missouri last year was in the same boat, right? Michael Porter Jr.
Yep.
I think he went to Denver. The injury cost him what was supposed to be a real breakout season at home for the home university. And we'll see what Michael Porter Jr. comes back and does this year for Denver. Kind of the same situation, Dave, really. The injury nowadays, these injuries don't really keep guys down the way they used to. So, I guess in my mind, I think the best for the second. We had it in football, too, with a corner from Washington who tore up his knee, and the Eagles drafted him anyway, first round, and now he's starting. I'm missing the name right now because we're not in NFL season. But to your point, those guys bounce back much quicker from surgery nowadays than they did in the past. So it could be a great pick. I am interested, now that you bring that point up, to see exactly what Michael Porter Jr. can bring to the table this year for the Nuggets, because if he brings first-round talent, that team gets a lot better.
So at the top of the draft, obviously, is the grouping of the worst teams in the NBA. I want to ask you about the best teams. The Bucks, the Raptors, the Sixers, the Celtics were the top four in the East this last year. The Warriors, Nuggets, Blazers, and Rockets, top four in the West. Did any of those 8 teams make a move last night that stood out to you that says, yes, that's going to make them better this next year?
I can't say that I saw one, Teddy. I really can't. I mean, first of all, those teams are so good to begin with. It's usually a depth type situation. I don't know that I saw one difference maker. I'll say this: a team that was on the cusp in the East that will have Victor Oladipo back next year, and that used draft picks to get T.J. Warren last night, the Indiana Pacers. I think Indiana might sneak up on people and into that top 4 next year, because what T.J. Warren brings to the table is, Tobias Harris is going to be a free agent, and teams are going, I'm not going to say crazy, but there's going to be a lot of suitors for Tobias Harris. T.J. Warren brings Tobias Harris-type numbers to a team that already has Bogdanovich at the small forward. So you got a couple of really good perimeter shooters now as forwards. T.J. Warren's numbers, just in case the listeners don't know, but last year before he got hurt, I think he played 40-plus games, but he shoots 48.6 from the field, 42.8 from three-point range, and 81.5 from the free throw line. And you know what? As good of a shooter as Bogdanovich is, he only shot 42.8 from three-point land. So T.J. Warren's a guy who really worked on his three-point shot. The numbers shot up in that category really quite a bit. I think he went from like a 23% three-point shooter to a 43% shooter from three last year. I think Indiana, Teddy, I know it's not a direct answer to your question, but I think that might be a little bit of a surprise in a team that can work their way into that East top 4 next year.
I'll give you one that I like, and I will admit freely that there's an Ivy League bias here, but it's a good bias, because I'm 99.9% sure this kid will figure out the intricacies of an NBA system about as fast as they can be figured out, because he comes from Yale, okay? Anything that's on paper is easy for those guys. This kid only can play. I think he's going to be a very productive NBA player. And they got him, 28th? Toward the end of the first round. He's better than that. This kid will play in the NBA. I think that's a great pick by the Warriors.
Yeah, and no disagreement there either. The little that we get to see of Ivy League hoops, unless we're on, the computer watching it, Yale was an offensive, almost juggernaut where Ivy League play is concerned, and there was your leader of that offense, right? So the Warriors, again, a depth-building situation, and maybe hit more minutes than expected with the 2 injuries that took place in Golden State during the playoffs. So I'd be with you, Dave. A lesser-known talent that has that type of talent, and probably, James Jones runs a pretty, you think of the Ivy as being kind of a stagnant league with half-court offense, but that's not really the way Yale plays. Yale's a wide open team, so perhaps a kid that comes from Yale is more NBA ready than some of those other Ivy schools.
So out here on the left coast, Rob, it wasn't a huge night for Pac-12 basketball,
or the Mountain West,
or the Mountain West for that matter. What'd you make of the lack of West Coast prospects? What'd you make of ball dropping the way that he did? This is a guy who at one point was projected to be a lottery player, and the Zags got a couple of guys drafted, but Mountain West and the Pac-12. It was slim when it came to the first round.
Yeah, it really was. I'll tell you the truth. I was surprised that Bowl fell all the way to 44. And I understand guys with injury concerns and guys of height in particular with foot concerns.
Yep.
You tend to shy away from those guys nowadays. We've seen it more than once. However, he's not your typical 7-footer in the fact that he's got really good deep range, a three-point shooter, and you wonder how it would look if he's healthy and they had him and Jokic on the floor at the same time. One center who does his work inside the paint and can stretch it out, but Bol, another 7-footer who would be outside in the perimeter. It'd be very tough for teams to defend that. It's hard to grade him right now, though, because, again, we're working off of what's on paper in front of us and knowing the talent that he has when 100% healthy. Will he be that player? I'm not sure. I think it's a good spot for Denver to take a chance. We just talked about them taking a chance on Michael Porter Jr. last year, so it seems like they're a team that is willing to, at some point, say, hey, listen, injury or not, there's enough value here for us to make this pick. And they're a team that's deep enough probably to survive it if it becomes a bust. But the Pac-12, hey, listen, we watched their college basketball last year. It wasn't good.
No, it wasn't.
The draft didn't support it either.
So
we'll see.
The kid who got drafted out of UCLA, I'm not big on him. I'm bigger on I like McDaniels out of San Diego State more from a Mountain West team. He went in the first round, and I think he'll play at the next level. I don't, not a great player, but he's going to be a good NBA player. All right, Rob, let everybody know how they can find out more about what you've got on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's pretty simple, guys. SportsMemo.com. Go right to the website, SportsMemo.com. You can find all selection packages up and available right there. You can go to Twitter, at Rob Veno Sports. If I'm active during the night, then you'll see whatever my thoughts are. Normally, I keep my thoughts to myself and post more factual stuff than what I'm feeling at the time, especially after last night's Tampa Bay ninth-inning collapse.
Tell me you had the under in that game.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to tweet after that one, but that's where you find me, SportsMemo.com and at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter.
Thank you, Rob. What do you want to say?
Guys, have a good day. Thanks for having me.
Have a great weekend, Rob. But yeah, that was
a bad beat.
The very worst beats are baseball unders.
Yeah.
Because you can't have 90 points scored in the fourth quarter of it. It takes like triple overtime or in a football game. But when you have 1-1 in the ninth and you can't cash your under 8 ticket, it doesn't even push. It loses. Yeah, and it only happens with unders like that. It's brutal.
Welcome to 2019 bullpens. I mean, it's just, oh man. You're gonna have to hold your breath at the end of games, every game, side and total, it seems, because there aren't many reliable bullpens out there. We'll talk about a couple of them coming up, though, because after the break, we'll return with our Joe's Angle of the Day and our MJ Christensen Friday 4 at 4.
The Las Vegas Sports Line.
Hey, it's Dave Cokin with John Lyons from Lyons Physical Therapy. So, car wrecks, very frequent in Las Vegas. Sometimes serious injuries, some not so serious, but in a lot of cases, there has to be some kind of physical therapy after the accident. Talk about that.
Yes, Dave. We as physical therapists can assess all injuries after a car accident. Sometimes we're the first person to see a patient where we can identify the type of injuries the patient has. We will get them moving better, help reduce their pain, and we also work in conjunction with multiple physicians so these patients can be given appropriate medications to help with their pain, muscle spasms, and swelling. We can also provide any post-operative treatment in case these patients ever need surgery on their spine, their shoulders, and their knees.
LionsPTLV.com, 702-476-0222.
Follow us on Twitter at the LV Sportsline and at ESPN Las Vegas.
Hello, friends. This is Thomas Johnson from Joe's Seafood Prime Steak and Stone Crab. Need a great idea for lunch or dinner? Your best bet is Joe's, one of the most popular dining destinations on the Strip. Joe's provides the ideal setting for private parties with accommodations for up to 150 guests. Stop by to see us at the Forum Shops at Caesars and ask for Thomas Johnson, your maitre d'.
If you had the New York Mets today, as a dog against the Chicago Cubs, you're 1 out away from cashing the ticket. It's 5-4 Mets. Bottom of the ninth inning, 2 outs and nobody on. And 1 ball and 2 strike count to, it looks like, Jason Hayward.
Yeah, you're 1 strike away now.
1 strike away. So if you're on the right side of that, celebrate tonight by going to Joe's. And if you're on the wrong side of it,
celebrate tonight?
Yeah, do yourself a favor and get yourself in a better mood by going to Joe's. Make a reservation at 702-792-9222.